than the other ones, that they should be a different price. So then I established 3 different rant tiers, and I think it was like $7 for something, maybe $10 for like a regular rant that didn't require any watch. I think it was just 10 for a regular one, 20 for me to watch up to 30 minutes, and then for $30 I would watch up to 2.5 hours. This was where I messed up. Because what I was thinking is, I want to give people the opportunity to recommend me movies that are more than like 90 minutes long. But the way that it was used was more so people were filling up 2.5 hours. Like, it would be like, hey, can you watch like 4 YouTube videos that add up to 2.5 hours? And I'm like, well, okay, now you're asking for like a way more complicated rant. And
your entire life. And now you don't know what to do, because guess what? Freedom is awful, and I can't decide what to have for dinner, much less what to do with the rest of my life. You have an infinite number of paths ahead of you. Pick! Join the army, or the Peace Corps, or the clergy. Go to grad school, or business school, or horoscope school. Where do astrologers go to school? Build your side hustles, and start a podcast, and follow your dreams until you realize that your dreams aren't actually that great, because work has much more to do with the people you do it with and your own attitude than whatever it is you're actually doing. I loved science, and I got a job doing science after I graduated, and it was miserable. Not because I didn't like the science, it's because I was the only person in the lab. All the time, just me and my pipettes and a family of armadillos and a giant canister of liquid nitrogen. And yes, that sounds kind of awesome, but after 6 months, it gets a little lonely. If you are very lucky, you have discovered something you like doing. It is very easy to get through life without discovering a saleable skill that you enjoy. And that is, by the way, how dream jobs actually
up with. I'm like, okay, there's a way of expressing my love for those characters that other people would appreciate that is not being done. So YouTube has found that audience, and if you go and look at the back end, like analytics side, where there's no more cooking channels that are recommending my content for the most part. There's a few, but they're entertainment heavy channels versus DIY or resource channels. Right now, there's a lot of anime channels that are that's the audience that I want, because like in the grand scheme of things, like as the business side of it, I want my own convention or to be heavily involved in conventions, right? Where it's no longer really just about the food or whatever. It's really about paying homage to these characters. Right. And that was the big breakthrough for me. And what I saw last month was, okay, cool. I pay myself very little for my channel. And now I'm like, okay, we have this chunk of change from AdSense. It's literally all being reinvested into content next year. You know, like just put, because I
didn't meet my biological parents till years later. I think I met my mother when I was 10, met my father when I was about 16, somewhere around there. So my grandparents were the only parents that I ever had. When I was 16, my grandmother passed away, which was pretty devastating. That was the only mom that I ever had. And when I was 23, and this was 11 years ago on Monday, October 24th, 2011. I came home and found my grandfather dead on the floor. This devastated me, like beyond words. Turned me into a completely different person. I have not been the same person since that day. If I was to technically say that there was one event that happened in my life.
The problems with the higher education system in the United States. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Here are 5 reasons why I think college in the US is a scam. Reason number 1, the purpose of a college isn't always to prepare you for a job. You have to take yourself back into that time. Back in the 11th and 15th century, in the medieval era, everybody was peasants, basically. Unless you're extremely wealthy, spending your entire life dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge is something extreme privilege. This is evident by some of the weird legacy traditions that are still left with us today. Take, for example, a PhD, Doctor of Philosophy. Doctor coming from to teach, and philosophy coming from philosophia, meaning the love of knowledge. The idea of universities back in the day was to create teachers that love to learn. Your entire purpose was just to learn and grow as much knowledge as possible and then teach that to the next generation.
But let's be honest, we all knew I was gonna have to mention either God is dead, one must imagine Sisyphus happy, or there's but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. I mean, is it really a mediocre philosophy YouTube video about meaning in life if I don't pick one of these overused quotes? So, God is dead. Instead of trusting a God to tell us why we are sick, why we sometimes hurt other people, we have medicine to explain how viruses travel, and psychology to explore the inner workings of our minds and emotions. Yay, free from the shackles of dogma. But secularism left us with a major problem. Science could tell us why we were sick and why we sometimes hurt other people, but it couldn't really tell us why? Like, what's the point of us getting sick? What's the point of hurting other people? Maybe to advantage ourselves and push our own goals forward? To endure hardship and be stronger as a result of it? But
it seems like there are stages where the rules change so dramatically that it's almost like you're living a new life. To speak in more concrete terms, because I'm being a little bit abstract here, I'm talking about the difference between like childhood versus adolescence versus early adulthood versus midlife versus, you know, the end of your life. And that's painting the picture in broad strokes, right? Because on top of that, everybody's on their own journey, going at their own pace, and these sort of switches can happen at times that you can't predict. I think I'm talking about this right now because only like 10 days ago, from the time of recording this, I turned 25. And that hit me way harder than I realized. I was not entirely able to process what it meant to suddenly be 25. 25 is a big number, you know, it's a quarter of a century. What's interesting is that I suddenly felt confronted with these honestly unrealistic expectations.